Hello and welcome to this YouTube video about free alternatives to Adobe Photoshop. We have one web-based alternative, Pixlr E, and one downloaded alternative, GIMP. They both have their positives and negatives, which hopefully I'll be able to outline quite well in this video. So hopefully it helps you, hopefully you enjoy it, and if you do, consider liking the video and subscribing. So let's get into it. First up is the Pixlr web-based alternative to Photoshop. So here we are in the Pixlr E interface. This is what happens when you open up the browser and type in the address, which you can see at the top. There are a couple of ads on the screen, and once you're in the editor too. You also have Pixlr X as well, which is a simpler version. So you can create a new, and there are a couple of templates, or you can go for a stock image search and it will bring up some results. So I'm just going to open this one. It does downsize the images a little bit because your browser can't edit them at full size the same way Photoshop can, which is a slight disadvantage of using this method compared to a downloaded photo editing program. So now I'm here. Fairly similar to Photoshop, you've got your adjustments here instead of the adjustment layers, and you can play around with all the regular settings, hue, saturation, color balance like I'm doing now, brightness, contrast, curves, all the usual stuff which you'd play around with in Photoshop. Then, as you can see to the bar here, you've got the gradient selection tools, fill bucket, pen, brush, zoom, text, shapes, eyedropper. You can add gradients and everything like you normally would, clone stamp. Everything is there as normal, really. I think there are a couple of tools that you haven't got, but the main ones are there. So and instead of having a selector mask with the brush, you use the cutout tool instead, which is fully reversible and everything. It's like this does the same thing as masks would, but it's not quite as easy to use. So that is one of the downfalls of this, not having the same method of masking out images as you would in Adobe Photoshop. And then if you go up to the edit tab, you have a couple of methods of transforming. You don't have as many, you don't have warp or perspective, but you can distort the image and you can rescale it. Then you can copy and paste image URLs from the internet, which is quite a useful feature. So select all the kind of basic features of Adobe Photoshop are here, and a couple of different ones. You've got help links there if you're struggling, similarly to how Adobe have it. You can match fonts and stuff like that. So it is all round quite a good software to use if you're only doing basic stuff. Occasionally I use this when I can't be bothered to load Photoshop up and I'm only doing something quickly. It's quite good to use even if you have Photoshop and you just need to do something really basic really quickly. It works quite well. So that is Pixlr E. And now here we are in the GIMP interface. As you can already tell, it's a lot more similar to Adobe Photoshop. It has a lot more options than Pixlr E does. And yeah, so you can go in and if you know how to use Photoshop, it takes a little bit of adjusting because not everything's in the same place, and where I usually use adjustment layers in the Photoshop, you access them through the color tab at the top in GIMP. So they're a very, very tiny learning curve, but you've still got pretty much all the same types of adjustments, and you've got filters under the filters tab. You can distort images in a very similar way. You've got the pen tool, select tool, lasso tool, text tool, all the same tools. They're over on the right, as you can see in that kind of grid formation, the top, no, not right, left corner. And then you've got the brush styles and stuff on the right. So you can adjust curves and everything the same way, it works the same way. I think curves in GIMP are a little bit better than curves in Pixlr E. So here I'm just adjusting it. I'm kind of going for like a late sunset look, and yeah, it's probably the best free photo editor I could find. It's definitely the most similar to Photoshop considering it's free. So here I am just adding a mask, so you can see that's done very similarly to in Adobe Photoshop, and you just use the brush tool. In Photoshop you hit B to open the brush tool, in GIMP you hit P, which is why it took me a while there, because it's paintbrush, and then it works in more or less the exact same way as it does in Adobe Photoshop. So, as I said, it's a very tiny learning curve to go from Photoshop to this, or if you get this first, then to go from this to Photoshop, it's quite a simple adjustment to make. So, yeah, I'd recommend this as the best free alternative to Photoshop, but if you don't want to download anything, or you want something a little bit easier maybe to ease into it, then I'd go for Pixlr Editor E, or X if you are really a beginner, then X works for the very basic stuff too. So that is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully you will join me again in a future video. Goodbye.